is EdTech, the monthly education-focused show brought to you by the fine folks at AVNation. Hello, my name is Tom Albright. I'm your host. With us this month is Mr. Greg Brown, UCLA, and he also writes from time to time for InfoComm All Voices, and still, for some reason, the chair of the Technology Managers Council. How are you, sir? I'm
just fine, and it's only a 2-year thing. So in theory, sometime at the end of this year, they'll put me out of my misery. I mean, replace me with somebody else who knows what they're doing.
Well, the neat thing all about this show is usually we have Scott Tyner on, who's neck deep in installation. So he's been a tech manager, you've been a tech manager, and our next guest has been a tech manager.
Although I must say it's very easy for Scott to be neck deep in many things.
Very nice, yes. Short joke. Out of it, shot.
He's what, 4'11"?
Yeah. Jeez. All right. Ernie Bailey is from the University of Arkansas Medical Services.
You're going to love this show.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing just great. And, Greg, I had it for 3 years. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was part of the group that made the change from 2 2-year terms to 2 1-year terms. So.
Well, it wouldn't be so bad if people actually showed up to meetings. Not like I'm bitter or anything after the show. Thank you very much, all you council members out there who had better things to do.
Just for the record, I'm no longer a council member. I can't be, so I had no business being there. That's why I wasn't there.
Just I wouldn't mind if you'd showed up.
I'm still on the list for some reason. I can't get off the list, but I'm no longer a tech management. You guys don't want me there. Last but not least, be nice to her, gentlemen. Winske. Chrissy is now from K through 12 Tech Decisions, a EH publication. So how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. Since this is all of our podcasts are brought to you by the fine folks at Middle Atlantic, MiddleAtlantic.com. We'll talk about them in a couple minutes and some of the stuff they have going on. This is our first show for EdTech following InfoComm 2014. Big show. They broke records, 37,000 plus. Last year in Orlando, it was the biggest concentration of technology managers. I don't know that there was quite that many this year, but it was a good show, right? And it was a good show this year for tech managers. So, Greg, we'll start with you. Coming out of Vegas, what big things, technology-wise, for education, kind of struck you? Like, what was like, oh my gosh, or I don't believe that they're doing that and pushing it toward education.
Let's see. I've been buying into the idea that it was somebody used the line evolutionary rather than revolutionary, and I like that. I think I even used that in my blog, my blog, which is currently being held hostage by InfoComm because they're not happy with it. But I won't say anything else because I'll get myself in trouble undoubtedly. But I think I use that line, and I think that's how I would describe it. A lot of interesting new incremental things out there. I really didn't see anything that I thought was just super new and revolutionary and crazy and is going to rock all of our worlds. I mean, everybody's doing collaborative stuff, and it's really it's really almost kind of a pain in the butt for us on this end because we have to figure out all of, everybody's changing features all the time, and which box do you want? Well, it's, this department likes this box because it does this, and this department wants this box because it does this. It's kind of an embarrassment of riches, but I really wouldn't call any of that stuff revolutionary. Lasers are big, but I think we were sort of expecting that. Curious to hear what everybody else has to say.
Was there anything that you came out of there going, I have to have one of those tomorrow?
No.
Okay. Chrissy, you covered it obviously for EH. What did you take out of it from not only for higher ed but also for K through 12 market? Was there anything that kind of struck you that this is something that they need to have?
I kind of agree with Greg. I mean, I didn't see anything that was like super revolutionary. Obviously, the collaboration solutions were big again, but kind of the one thing that I thought was a little bit interesting is the smart cap, and I just thought that it's a really good system for like small group instruction, which is big in K-12, versus a lot of the larger systems, which are more for whole classrooms. So I thought that was a little bit different. But again, there wasn't too much that I kind of walked away with going, oh wow, that's really really unique.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing it was kind of a continuation of 2013, and that was the huddle spaces, the collaborative. Almost every booth we went into in 2013 had some sort of huddle thing or another, and this year, we'll talk about this in a few minutes. The flipped classroom was the new buzzword, at least for education folks. I shouldn't say buzzword, but that was what they were selling. So
it's new, it's hot, it's the in thing.
Yeah, it's the in thing.
We're over collaboration apparently. It had its 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's 1 or 2 shows. So, all right. A couple things real quickly. Our buddy Matt Scott, who's on a couple of our shows, wrote a piece in well, it's on AV Network. I believe he worked for SCN, about Crown's amp that has AVB baked into it. And it's not this. I don't want to have a conversation with you guys about that product necessarily, but about AVB in general. They came out this year. They had their first Avenue Alliance certified product was a switch. Makes sense, right? The second one is this amp. The question for you guys, and Ernie, will start with you. What's the place for AVB or something like AVB on a campus? What are some of the drawbacks of putting in something like this, or are there any? Is it just kind of like makes sense for us?
Well, for us, the big deal is, how does it ride on the overall network? And that's the question I get, because, we are an academic health science center, but most of what we have is driven by our hospital and our research areas. The university part is not the largest part, and we have to follow their rules. Now, being able to run things over AVB would be a big advantage to us in how we support our systems. And as we're seeing more and more of our core units wanting to ride on the network and communicate across the network as opposed to a dedicated network as we've been setting up in the past, I think seeing this option available, whether it's an amplifier or a network switch or a matrix switch that allow us to output everything across the network, and we're already running everything over CAT cable, so why not take the next step and go over the main university network and have everything on one trunk? But once again, we get into bandwidth issues, and we get into other regulations that we see across the rest of the campus.
Yeah, Greg, we've talked about this before on the show. You have I think it's an interesting setup at UCLA, where you have, correct me if I'm wrong, 100 IT departments.
34 last I heard.
34, okay, 134, whatever. So you trying to do
34
AVB.
IT departments, yes.
Yeah. So talk to me through this, right? So your group, could your group do AVB in your own little private, network infrastructure, or is that just an act of Congress?
I don't know. We've never tried it. It's never something that it's not something that's come up. Our rooms are generally, individual little rooms. The only thing that we're sending distances is control and monitoring type stuff. So audio really hasn't come up, and actually I thought I saw more Dante stuff appearing on everything audio out there, but I don't know, that was just my impression. But no, I think any of this is, or a lot of this stuff, yeah, we'd have to see whether we could do it. I will work with 3 different departments sometimes to get live lit data ports in my rooms. I think the word you used was interesting, and I can think of plenty of other adjectives, none of which are appropriate for even this show.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Because
do we have to behave ourselves because Chrissy's here?
No, you don't have to behave
No,
yourself.
we don't. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Take care of herself. I mean, are you kidding me? She's from Massachusetts, dude. She'd eat you alive.
Oh.
Don't I look like
Yes.
it?
I already know a lady from Massachusetts who
Would also eat you alive.
and has threatened to kick my butt
Yes.
on a few occasions.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Chrissy, let's talk about not only secondary education and elementary schools, but all the way through higher ed. What are the implications of AVB? When it comes to, like Ernie said, putting on the network and making sure the bandwidth's there. Is it a viable option for education installation? Easier to say.
I mean, I think it's probably certainly more viable for higher education. It's not something that we've actually ever really covered in like the K-12 world. But I know a lot of the coverage that we've done on tech decisions, we kind of thought that like AVB would be kind of like the next big thing, but it hasn't really taken off the way we expected it to, because we had kind of written about, oh, well, maybe at InfoComm we did last year, AVB products, you'll see those at InfoComm, and there still hasn't been a ton of movement around that.
No, there hasn't. Actually, there's a speaker coming out. And it's a higher end speaker. It's the next thing I believe it's the next thing, if my memory and my notes are correct. It's the next thing to become certified, right? And we're supposed to do a special with these folks, and they're like, okay, let's plan it for like the middle of July, and it's the 23rd, 22nd. They're still waiting on it, and I think they're still working out the tweaks and the twerks of getting the certification, because when we talked to them back in February, like, oh yeah, we got a system going on, and they got the first one, and then it was June before the second. And nothing against the University of New Hampshire. I'm sure they're a fine institution. It's just like, you're right. There hasn't been a whole lot of movement. I think that there's a bottleneck somewhere, right?
Right.
But once that bottleneck gets opened up, I think that's going to be something cool for them. So.
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room here with this, and it's a nice article, and I like Matt, even though he's Canadian. He comes up with some good ideas, and this is the point where you give them my email address, right?
No, you're fine.
Okay. I just alienated a country, It's
You're alien. 3 people from Canada that listen to us.
Yes, all 3, right?
All 3 of them.
The elephant here in the room here is that AVB is still AB.
Yes.
Where's the V? We've been waiting patiently for years, and okay, there's all sorts of neat audio products which are going to fit some interesting, useful niches, but I think we're all kind of looking forward to that V one of these days, ideally before we retire.
Well, you're a lot closer than the rest of us, so.
I probably got the lead on that one.
Ed 2 Timothy, thank you very much. I love you too.
Says the man who just turned 40. So, in all seriousness, last year in 2013 there was Barcode. 2014 there was another company that was showing video. But Greg's right. There's nothing yet that's been certified that's out there that's handling the video portion. And so until there is, we'll kind of hold our breath and see what they've got.
I don't recommend holding our breath for this one.
Good. He's my curmudgeon. All right, from our buddies over at Commercial Integrator, Microsoft is laying off 14% of their workforce.
All the people that were in the InfoComm booth.
They were less than that. 18,000 employees. Microsoft CEO Mr. Nadella said that he is taking an action. He didn't say this, but 14%. I'm switching these. 14% of their workforce. Chrissy, first of all, what kind of impact is this going to have on education? Because a lot of these folks are the people who interface with education facilities, whether it's licenses for Office or licenses for the operating system, getting folks Surface deals, which is one of Microsoft's initiatives. How is this going to impact the education market?
I mean, I think it's probably still a little too early to say, but I think Microsoft has had enough problems kind of getting into the education space, and this, certainly isn't going to help. They had expected the Surface tablet to kind of like be the next big thing in one-to-one, and that didn't happen, and so it can't be good for them.
Yeah. I have a buddy of mine who, he's an integrator out in San Francisco, and he told me the other day, he goes, I'm buying a Surface Pro. I'm like, well, why?
Why?
to program on. I swear to you, he's using it as his laptop extension. And another buddy of ours, Phil Cordell, his programmer programs on the Surface. So I think it's finding its way. I don't think it's quite hit education yet like they want to do too, but it's finding its way. Greg, what is this going to be? You know, the loss of 14% of Microsoft. What's that going to mean to us, to you guys?
I hope the first person out the door is the person who invented Clippy.
Oh, jeez. That person's retired by now, certainly. Surely they've retired.
So lucky. They should have been shot.
Clippy's
basically.
like 20 years old, 25 years old.
Well, yeah, younger kids in the audience, go and Google this, and you'll understand. I agree with Chrissy. I was going to say
Clippy.
Yeah, I would say you've undoubtedly been called worse, but that might not be the case. We'll find out. I mean, Microsoft is just such a weird company. I have a harder time thinking of a company that is more successful doing incredibly stupid things. I mean, look at all the incredibly stupid things they have done and the things in their programs which are just so, hey, let's change this year's version of the program completely so nobody understands it. Nobody else has been able to get away with that like Microsoft has. So maybe they'll behave a little bit more like a decent company and will make sense and create stuff that we like and works right the first time. But
do you think maybe the reason for that is that the fact that they have the margin to do that, right? They've got more money than
probably.
God, but
yes, undoubtedly.
They have that ability. Ernie, what's this going to mean for guys and gals in education?
I'm going to have to go along with the consensus here. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I don't know that it's going to do a lot. We're not seeing a lot of Microsoft products walk into the classroom under the BYOD or anything like that. Yes, we have Windows-based computers in all of our classrooms, but I mean that's because that's what we started with, I guess, and that's kind of the platform we've used. But I don't ever see anyone from Microsoft walk into my office and say, "What can I do for you?" How can we improve your stuff? I get that from other manufacturers, from the AV manufacturers. They send a rep in here and say, how things going, what's going on. I don't get that from Microsoft, so I don't know that I'm going to see a change in that. I've had a request twice to have a Surface in a classroom.
Really?
Two times.
How did you handle it?
Did
you say no, or did you just say here's a connector for it?
Well, the first one I said we're in the process of working on it, and the second, and they wanted to use them wirelessly, so we then got a hold of a Crestron Air Media device, and I've got a floater device now that we move from room to room for that. So
we have one. We have one instructor using it that I know of, and they're just plugged in wired.
Okay.
Yeah, plugged in wired we're already set for. That's no different than a laptop for us. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've installed a couple of the Air Medias and been relatively pleasantly surprised with them. I should say pleasantly. I've been surprised with them. Very happy with them so far. So. All right, we talked about the Flip Classroom from EDUCAUSE. I got an email the other day about it. It was called The 7 Things You Should Know About Flipped Classrooms. And the reason I bring this up is AMX had something, Crestron had something, a number of manufacturers had something about flipped classrooms. I had never heard really that term before. And so I wanted to bring it to you folks to see your take on the flipped classroom. Chrissy, we'll start with you on this one. Whether it's middle school or high school or higher ed, my understanding of the whole flip idea is this. You do homework in the classroom and you go home to watch the presentation or watch the lecture, and technology is how is facilitating that idea. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I mean, it's flipped because basically you're learning what you would think of as a typical lesson, you're learning on your own. So you're either watching a video outside of school, or it could even be like you can even read a text and then you come back into school the next day, and instead of class time being spent on a lecture, it's spent in some kind of like activity-based assignment. So it's a little more, there's more active learning involved. Technology is definitely a really common way to facilitate it, and it's a really big trend in K-12, but also in higher ed too. I had done a couple of stories on that when I was still working with higher ed tech decisions. And there's a lot of like lecture capture involved and all kinds of pretty neat things. It can be kind of tricky to figure out, and it can definitely be done in the wrong way, but it's a big trend right now.
Ernie, we'll kick this off with you. What impact do you think, if anything, in the college market do you think this is going to have? Do you see it where, go ahead.
Like I say, we're seeing it both in our College of Medicine, our College of Pharmacy, a whole lot.
Okay.
And some of the other schools are starting to implement it. We have 5 different colleges here, and all health science related. But in fact, we have developed a classroom, a shared classroom among the departments. It can handle about 200 students, and that puts them in groups of 6. So we've taken the lecture out. The students are now getting that, offline. They're watching at home or whatever, and they come in, and the class starts out with a quiz. The way they're doing it is real interesting. They start out with an individual quiz. You take that, you turn in your scorecard, this little, just a little score sheet or whatever, or they use audience response for some of the classes, so they just kind of go through at a self-paced rate. When that's over, they take the same quiz as a team.
Huh.
And it's interesting, we're seeing that, when they meet as a group, they're learning collaboration right there. They work with each other, they get a higher score. So it's really impressive. And then they work on projects based on the lecture. There's an instructor. We set the lectern in the center of the room, which really freaked out the faculty at first. But there are student tables, there are tables that seat 6 each all the way around it. It's a big rectangle, like I said, dead center is the lectern. So the instructor is there, and they might give a 5-minute talk to start out the project, and then they wander around, answering questions, helping, it's more of a lab situation, but it's an active learning situation that we're doing. Along with that as well, we have a Teaching with Technology symposium that actually takes place Thursday and Friday of this week. We started out, it was just for our campus. We now have K through 12 and colleges, higher ed, from all over our state and from outside the state. We have internationally known keynote speakers. It's a 2-day event, and there's several workshops and small group discussions about effectively running a flipped classroom this year. So it's really neat, and that we've seen that for the last 3 years. We've had discussions on that. So I think it's a really big deal, and like I said, it's K through 12 all the way through higher ed and into graduate schools.
How are you, Greg? We'll get to you on this one. But Ernie, real quickly, how are you facilitating the lecture part? I mean, are you taking them into a studio, or are they doing it at their desk with a webcam? How are you facilitating that part?
Well, a lot of them we have recorded the lectures in years past.
Okay.
We started doing some lecture capture about 3 or 4 years ago. It turned out, the faculty were all against doing lecture capture, but when they realized that there were about 35 iPhones set up pointing at the screen, recording the lecture, they decided it was better to have some control over it.
Yeah.
So that was how we got some of our faculty into the lecture capture mode, and they've kept those, and they're either using those or they're pulling information. Some of them are doing desk recordings, some of them are finding pre-recorded things, or they're giving book assignments and not giving the traditional 2-hour lecture.
Very cool. All right, Mr. Brown, in the world of UCLA, where does this fall at the whole flipped classroom?
Well, I think the reason you're seeing all the flipped classroom monikers on all the products all of a sudden is, you know, Ernie mentioned it. At some point, they're using some form of collaboration,
Yeah.
and these are all the same collaboration devices that they've been touting for the last couple of years, and now they've learned that this is part of flipped classrooms, and probably half of these marketing folks don't understand what a flipped classroom is anyway, and but it's the new catchphrase, and so we'll market it for flipped classrooms because that's the hot thing, and I think that's what's going on as far as the products at InfoComm. And actually, some of the Cal State schools are doing some much more interesting stuff with this than any of the UCs that I know of. So, but they tend to be a lot more innovative and cutting edge as opposed to us, stuffy old-fashioned UC system schools.
And explain to people who've never watched this what the difference is between Cal State and UC systems.
Well, the University of California, the University of California system are the top schools, are the most elite schools.
Yeah.
And then the Cal State schools are the other schools, and then right below them are the community college district. But we don't even talk about them.
That's my those are my peeps. All right. We're going to take a break here real quick. Talk to her about our buddies over at Middle Atlantic. You guys can take a break, take a drink of water. Greg can go surf while I talk about it. All right, AVNation and all of our podcasts brought to you by Middle Atlantic and their new C5 series credenzas and their FlexView display solutions. If you go to our YouTube page, you will see me playing with their FlexView, making it move up and down. It's a display system, and it has a motor that lets you lower and raise the display, which is kind of cool. But first, the C5 series credenzas. This is an extension, an evolution of their already existing credenzas. And if you're watching the video up on here, I've got their webpage, because this is how many new freaking laminate or covers they've got. I mean, it's a lot. There's a couple here that look like marble.
You buy the metal in the right size and shape that you want, and then you just mix it with the colored sides that you want, and can create like thousands of different things. It's a really cool system.
It's a very cool system, and they've got all sorts of different additions and vents and venting motors and stuff like that. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. So you can go by the website, check that out. And then the FlexView display solution, they've got 3 different models, 2 or 3 different models. One of them is built for video conferencing. They've got a big base where you can put a battery pack in it and basically have a mobile VC unit. The other one, like I mentioned, has the motor that lets you raise and lower the display for a number of different reasons. One of them, honestly, is for accessibility, for disabled people that they can't quite reach the display. You can lower it down to whatever height you need to be. So you can check all this stuff at middleatlantic.com. Also at middleatlantic.com, you can get 12-hour support. I almost gave Becky Bill a real heart attack. 12-hour support, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So Greg, you can still hook up with them if you're working on something late into the afternoon on the West Coast. So
always had good luck with Middle Atlantic stuff.
Yeah, and you're all the way on the West Coast, so that's saying something. Getting shipped from Jersey. So
actually, I'm pretty sure they have a stocking warehouse here in California, if I remember right.
They do, but I was trying to. The reason I know that they do is Middle Atlantic provided us with a podium. And let's just say that a rack got misplaced, and that they had to ship one from California to Vegas for InfoComm this year. So, yeah, they do have a stocking warehouse. That's how I know. So, yeah, MiddleAtlantic.com, Middle Atlantic, what great systems are built on. Yeah, if you came by our wonderful little our ragtag booth at InfoComm this year, there was a big, giant, nice podium, and that was a Middle Atlantic podium. had a rack built in it and had all kinds of really cool things. So
Staffed by your wife most of the time, it seems.
by my wife most of the time. Yes, very well done. Very well done.
All in the family, I see.
Yes. My wife and then a bunch of red band guys helped us out with that as well. So, all right, let's us move on. This is also from AV Network, and I'll show the picture here, and for those of you not watching but listening to it. Okay, so it's a Resi award for the best remote control. Don't yell at me yet. It's not about the Resi remote control. Here's the thing where my brain went with this, guys. Ernie, we'll kick this off with you. I'm seeing a lot of, both in my designs, and I work for a company called Innovad. We do design consulting as well as custom programming, independent programming. I'm seeing a lot of scope of works where instead of a Crestron control or an AMX control, fancy schmancy touch panel, I'm seeing iPads more and more, right? And iPad minis. I've seen like 2 or 3 iPad minis in the last month. Here's the question for you, gentlemen, and for you, Chrissy. Mm-hmm. What sort of remote, what sort of control should be in a classroom? Ernie, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I'm still for using the traditional Crestron panels, but at the same time, I mean, you're working on a project for us right now, about to wrap up, where we're requiring iPad controls also. So we can walk in with our iPads. The thinking here on our campus is an iPad is usable elsewhere, as I've discovered in one room where I had an iPad controller. I no longer had a controller. Behind 2 locked doors and a locked drawer, I lost an iPad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And they sold the power supply with it also. That was in a different area, so someone knew what they were doing. So,
Those are the worst kind.
Yes. I have yet to have a Crestron panel walk out of a classroom. So our preference is that we do go with the wireless units.
Okay.
So we can, an assistant instructor or graduate assistant can sit in the back and control things if the instructor so desires. Or we can actually if we have someone that doesn't push buttons right, we can take the controller off, get their PowerPoint set or whatever they're going to be doing, and they don't mess anything up during the lecture. So we have those options. But once again, we do have iPad controls. About half of my staff have their own iPads. I bought the Crestron app for them.
Okay.
So they can step in the back of the room and not have to go up to the lectern and push buttons. They see what the problem is from the door, hit some buttons and make the changes most of the time. So my answer is both controllers definitely have a place in the classroom. Price-wise, yes, the iPad's a little bit cheaper. Yeah. We're seeing price drops in the touch panels, so maybe we'll have a wash price-wise, but my in-house programmer prefers programming towards the Crestron panel, even though he is big with iOS systems. So.
Yeah, but I think both is a valid answer to this question, right?
Right.
Ernie, you brought up a good point. For your techs who need to walk in and not disrupt the class, but still get the system up and running, a mobile controller is useful, very useful.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Brown, when it comes to yours, you still have one of those racks that we've been watching for the last year behind you with the touch panel.
Yeah, because I don't have a place to put it.
There's classrooms all over you. I'm sure you can find one.
It's not finished because they won't tell me what they want exactly to do. So it's an unfinished rack, and I'm out of space in the little cubby where we store.
You've been
racks.
Working for university too long. You need to come work with me.
Oh, okay.
What do you say when it comes to touch panels and stuff? What belongs in classrooms?
We don't have any here. I actually will be.
You don't have any what?
Alternative control panels.
Because I know you've got touch panels. You got one right behind.
Yes, we've got a number of touch panels. We don't
Any
have
deployed?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Ouch! Ouch!
Very
Yes.
nice.
29 actually. 29 right now, and no alternative touch panels. I think, like a lot of schools, we're kind of slow adopters. We don't need to be. Yeah, the line I've used occasionally is, we've got 10,000 faculty. Many of them are old. All of them are impatient. I don't need to be the first person rolling out any sort of brand new technology. And so we're going to wait and see. Like I think I said, I will probably be rolling out my first room later this summer, that'll have an iPad backup control, which will be sort of my first to screw up. So we'll see. Check back in with me in a couple of months, and I'll let you know how creative I was in messing that up.
All right. Well, I will definitely take you up on that. I might have you write something for us. That would be kind of cool. And here's the thing. I like the iPad as a secondary, and Chrissy will get your 2 cents on this too. But I think I'm leaning more to Ernie with, I do like the wired or at least the dedicated Crestron piece. I've never heard of a Crestron controller going missing, even a wireless one. What the heck are you going to do? Are you going to throw it on eBay or something?
We did have, I don't know specifically it was Crestron, but we had a department with all they had was a wireless touch panel, and it went away.
Wow.
And guess what? Guess what? They didn't own the code. Oh, I bet that's a surprise to you. And so they were just completely screwed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To use the vernacular.
Yes, to use the Oxford vernacular. All right, Chrissy. What do you, from your experience and from talking to folks, what do you think, or what has your sense? What kind of controller should be in a classroom?
I mean, I don't know that one is better than the other, but I personally like the idea of the iPad, especially since a lot of schools are moving in that direction anyways. I just like the idea of having one device that kind of does everything, although I hadn't really thought about it getting stolen, which is a really good point. But then again, if people are stealing Crestron touch panels, I don't know.
It's in California. It's an isolated event.
We were obviously off surfing at the time.
Yes. No. Okay, yeah, that's a good point too. Here's the thing: the first time I saw one in action, I was underimpressed, and then they have done some interesting things. Both AMX and Crestron have done some interesting things with their apps over the last year, both with feedback and with the reliability. But I still think I'm with Ernie. I like that as a backup as of right now.
First generation apps, apps 2 years ago were really kind of sucky. They were like racing to get something out there, and most of them were pretty clunky. Better things are out there now, so I think you're going to see more people jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah. The one thing I do like is both the AMX's and Crestron's feedback. I'm a big fan of being able to, whether it's getting it feedback from a biamp or getting it back from the DSP or the projector or what have you. Most of them, you have to buy the upgraded one that doesn't come with the free one, that feedback. So. All right, from Lynn Scrogan, this is from our buddies over at Rave. Is the education market bouncing back? And this is kind of after ISTE 2014, one of the biggest education conferences in the U.S. Excuse me. So I'll ask you, gentlemen, and Chrissy, is the market bouncing back? Are you guys seeing that? Ernie, are you seeing a bounce back from education?
I mean, we're doing more. We're coming up with funding, internal funding, to do more. We've done a good bit over the last year and have several projects lined up for next year. That 2 or 3 years ago I was told, we're not doing anything right now. So maybe it is coming back, and hopefully it will get back to where it was several years ago.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Oh, you are going to ask me, aren't you?
Well, you were sighing. So.
Hey, look, I ignored the reference to the company earlier that I just could have completely.
I know. Thank you.
talked about the way I talked about like 2 shows ago, but I didn't.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You hit me with the ruler enough times, I eventually figured it
I
out.
never hit mine a couple times, but that was it was Vegas when we were out, so
I just what?
nothing. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Is the education market bouncing back? My first question was, I didn't know it had gone anywhere.
Oh, brother. Oh, yes. You don't live in Illinois. Yes, it's gone somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it slowed down a little bit from my perspective. I mean, our funding didn't change at all, but okay.
See, why do I keep having you on? Because you keep saying things like that, and
so I can disagree with everything you say.
Curating, right? And we're going to get into some state politics. But California is the most broke state in the union. Only people more broke is
most
Illinois,
broke,
and
most
you got
incompetently run.
Oh my! And your funding never changed.
No.
Holy cow!
Wow.
They're up there with the dartboard, throwing the darts, and they never hit our square. What am I supposed to say?
You are the luckiest man on the face of this earth. You realize that?
What was the commercial? Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. You know, don't hate me because my budget didn't change.
Oh,
Some of us obviously know how to write a proposal.
Yeah, I don't hate you. I hate the situation. I'm not kidding. I knew guys and women that in University of Illinois and ISU and downstate. They were on furlough. Their budgets got slashed. I mean, everything. And
Well, you know, the Cal States have had problems, but the Cal States didn't have any money to begin with. I have been told by some of my Cal State friends they would kill me if it got them my budget. Fortunately, it won't.
Are you sure about that? There's like some bylaw.
Yes,
somewhere?
I checked.
Okay.
Before I met with them, I checked.
Oh, gee. Before you took a drink. All right,
Yes.
Chrissy, with the University of California system aside, what have you heard? Do you think the education market is coming back?
I think it's interesting because most of the schools that I talk to have had their budgets significantly cut in the last 5 years, like significant. But I did just read some recent survey, and I think it might have been put out by COSIN, the Consortium for School Networking, that said that most technology directors anticipated that their budgets were going to increase. I don't remember being specific about what types of technology that might be for, but I did think that was kind of interesting because most of the people that I've talked to are still kind of feeling those cuts.
Yeah, and we're slowly coming back, from what I can understand. Now, I will say this, you know, having stepped away from the education market as, you know, a day-to-day integral worker, but from my understanding of the budgets and stuff like that, that is slowly returning, at least in our small part of the world. So.
And actually, to be fair, there were budgets cut in various places in the UC system. I think a lot of our budget cuts were used to cut in areas where things really needed to be cut, and I think there were, amazingly enough, some intelligent people somewhere above me that realized that things like educational technology equipment, which is I think what our line item is called, are kind of important. So, you know, other people here did not escape the axe, but we did.
But you did. Well, good for you. Seriously, that is awesome. We did not, or the guys I used to work with did not. All right, from higher ed tech decisions. Technology managers want colleges to read the fine print regarding their role. Basically, Greg, I'm going to start with you on this because, first of all, I know you're going to have plenty to say. In all seriousness, being a tech manager is one of those things where a lot of times it's a catch-all. It's a catch-all position for IT, for AV, obviously, sometimes for video. I know our buddy Scott Tyner does work with the video department at Bates College. So what exactly, if you had to write it, Greg, what would you say is your 4 or 5 things? Like this is on my This is on my job description.
The one that actually the big one that I would point to is the line we always refer to around here: other duties and responsibilities as required.
Yes.
You get that in there, and you're done for. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Yeah, our job is kind of, yeah, it's a little bit of everything, and if you're unhappy with it, wait a month, it'll change. Along with the technology. So,
Yeah.
is this actually a surprise? I want to hear from Ernie, and from you. I mean, is this kind of a surprise to anybody?
Well,
Ernie?
Greg, yeah, I'll answer that. About 10 years ago, InfoComm had a group of technology managers come in for about a 3 or 4 day session to discuss what technology managers are, what they need to do their job, what tools. That was kind of the start of this program that they ran at InfoComm. It was how it got kicked off. And looking at this article, it looks like they have kept our notes. I mean, this is the discussion we had 10 years ago with InfoComm about, this is what we do, this is what we need help with, budgeting and developing managers, because I don't know of anyone in AV management who started out as a manager. They didn't go to management school. They learned AV and worked their way up.
It explains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We started out running the technology and once again just worked our way up. Going back to what do technology managers do and what is your job description? What I tell my staff is their responsibility is to maintain and set up classrooms in such a way that when Dr. Smith walks out of his office towards the lecture hall, he's thinking about what he's going to teach the students. He's not going to say, what button am I supposed to punch, or do you think they fixed this yet, or is the lamp going to go out during my lecture? Those things aren't going to come to his mind. He's going to be thinking about what he's going to teach. And I also remind them on our campus, the people that are learning are going to be taking care of you in your old age because they're medical students.
Yeah.
You don't want them to miss a lecture.
And they're going to have needles and scalpels.
That's right.
Sharp instruments.
Keep that in mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
But, our goal is to take the concern of the technology away from the instructor.
The line that we use occasionally that I think piggybacks right on that thought perfectly is the instructor is going to walk into a classroom with little or no training, usually no, because they're too busy. And if they can't walk into any room on campus and just understand the AV equipment like they've worked with it all their lives and do their lecture flawlessly, it is all your fault.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the bottom line. And that encompasses just a ton of stuff that most people never appreciate. Certainly a lot of stuff I think a lot of the people above us never understand.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of calls of duty involved in coming up with those sorts of systems.
I want to go back to this conference that we had about 10 years ago. Greg Bronze from Cornell was in the group. He was also one of the chair of the Technology Managers Council years ago. But Greg had rented a car when he got to town. Most of us had just taken a shuttle to the hotel, but he had some personal stuff to do, so he rented a car, and he pointed out to us, when I got in that rental car, it was different than my car. I did not have to read a user's manual to drive it here. He said, why can't we make AV systems like that?
Yep.
And that was the beginning of Dashboard for Controls.
Because integrators like to show off.
Oh,
wait, I'm sorry. Did that slip out?
I still love Dashboard for Controls, and I still swear by it.
Yeah, well, that was where that came from. Greg said, I looked at the dashboard, and the fuel gauge was in a little bit different place, and the speedometer was still centered, and I could figure out how much gas was in the car and how fast I was going and what gear I was in without having to read a book. And he said, AV systems aren't like that. Why not?
But and to Greg Brown's point, he's right. I mean, the people who don't follow it is because 9 out of 10 they want to show off some of their their skills.
Right.
All right, Chrissy, you've got the last word on this. What do you think should be, or from your experience with talking with tech managers, what should be on their list of duties?
I don't know what should be on their list of duties, but I know there's a lot of things that I think are on the list of duties now that probably weren't before. And I know a lot of people have talked to me about budgets, that they're now like responsible for figuring out their own budgeting and kind of figuring out their own processes. And it's, I think, difficult because for someone had mentioned, like, you learn AV technology and you're not learning management skills. So now there's almost like a business side of it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for another hour and another episode of EdTech. With us has been Chrissy Winske. Chrissy is now with K through 12 Tech Decisions, part of EHPubs. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Where can people find you or more about K through 12?
At k12techdecisions.com, or follow us at K12TD on Twitter.
Okay. Mr. Ernie Bailey from UAMS, thank you, sir.
Glad to, always. And you can find me on LinkedIn or at uams.edu.
uams.edu. And last but not least, in the plush and overly ostentatious University of California, LA.
I go surfing now?
Yes, you can go surfing now.
Was that a dig on my Hawaiian shirt?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Nice Hawaiian shirt, by the way.
Well,
it was a dig on the palm tree behind you.
It was. It met the most important consideration for a Tuesday morning podcast recording shirt. It was clean. Yes. A lot of people have found me on LinkedIn, and I also blog periodically for InfoComm Voices when I don't write things that upset them, like my latest blog, which might have to find another home someplace else, but that's still up in the air, and so I'll stop talking now before I dig my hole any deeper. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. I enjoyed it.
Oh, my. I like you, Greg. I only got to see Greg once during InfoComm. And he was in the middle of and in between teaching classes. So.
No, it was in the middle of one great big class. It was a 3-day class. That was. You don't appreciate what standing up and talking for 3 days is like until you try standing up and talking for 3 days. And I had a co-teacher.
So you were only 1.5 days.
We alternated. Although he did give me the brand new IT section of the material. Thank you very much, Mel. I enjoyed all 3 hours of that.
Nice. Well, you've got.
Like I said, not that I'm bitter or anything.
You've got 35 IT departments at your back. You got.
Yeah. Now, if I understood how many of those IT departments.
Yeah, that's between you and UCL.
I'm a rational, sane person. I'm not IT material.
I understand that joke completely. All right, my name is Tom Albright. Don't follow me. Go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv.
What's the difference between God and an IT manager?
God doesn't think he's an IT manager.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. He's here all week. 2 drink minimum. Go by the website, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. You'll find this podcast and a host of others. Also, we are starting a newsletter just to keep people up to date for those who aren't on Twitter, honestly, because that's our main how people get out and find out about the new podcast. So if you're interested, go and sign up there. We have a new State of Control. George Tucker just did a new Lighting Guy show last night, so that'll be up there shortly. AV Week, obviously we record it every Friday, it posts every Monday. So yeah, AVNation.tv.
Every week, amazingly enough.
Every week. It's crazy.
It's amazing how that works out.
It is amazing.
Took me a whole month to figure that out.
Jeez. Because you're from California.
Sun, surf.
Yes, I know. It's nice.
It's a rough life, but somebody's got to lead it.
But the 3 of us have seasons. So.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can have them. Thank you very much.
All right.
If Scott was here, he only has 2. So.
Well, that's true. That's true. Winter and summer. Our podcast brought to you by Middle-Atlantic.com. What great systems are built on. Thanks so much for watching and listening. This has been EdTech.